Typically, when I decide what story I want to cover, there needs to be something about that story that compels me to do it. I need to be heavily inspired by the story, or there needs to be some sort of feeling that I get about the story in order for me to cover it, you know? When I did the story of Kanika Jenkins, I was obsessed with that story for some months before I decided to record it, and I could pretty much give an example for every video that I've done prior to this one. And this video in particular is no exception to that, because I was scrolling one day on TikTok, shout out to TikTok, and I came across a video of a broadcast team.
You're watching KSNF TV channel 16 Joplin, your hometown.
And they were doing a weather report, and they were reporting the weather of some small town in Missouri.
From the KSN Storm Center, this is a severe weather alert.
Good evening. We've got some information on this storm. Let's go ahead and go to the Freeman First Alert.
Okay. And they're showing they're showing the entire city from the view of a camera that they have mounted on the very top of their broadcasting tower at the radio station, okay? And they're able to somehow control this camera, and they begin panning it around to show off the city and talk about the storm that is unfolding, right? And as they're panning the camera, they catch something that none of the reporters and none of the meteorologists at the station saw coming. It took them completely off guard. And when I get into what exactly they caught on camera, you're probably going to wonder, like, how the fuck could something like this catch an entire city off guard? And that question is what drew me to this story. So let's get into it. On the evening of May 22nd, 2011, the citizens of Joplin, Missouri, a small town that is situated on the southwest corner of Missouri. It's a pretty historic town, has a lot of like deep, rich history. Actually, Route 66 runs right through Joplin, making it a pretty like big tourist destination for those who are traveling along Route 66. It's a cultural blend of Kansas City, Oklahoma, Fayetteville. These three major cities kind of surround this small town of Joplin, Missouri. So it's a big fusion of all those cultures. It's got a population of 54,000 people, or at least at the time of this story, it had that population, making it the 12th largest city in the state. Like I said, known for its rich history, and actually has a pretty low-key, like trendy and poppin' food scene, in a deep root in like a family. A strong familial community was the city of Joplin. And so on that evening, May 22nd, 2011, once again, the citizens of Joplin were notified earlier that day that there was going to be a pretty severe weather system that would be moving into town, and they could expect some serious rainfall and possibly even some pretty large hail damage later on that day. And for the citizens of Joplin, that's kind of another day in paradise. They're not too unfamiliar with pretty severe like showers and rainstorms. I kind of liken it to living in Texas, where every August, literally like every single day, you're getting some fucking warning about some heat index and being told to drink plenty of water, stay hydrated, stay out of the sun if possible, and look out for signs of heat exhaustion, because here in Texas in August, severe heat is just another day in paradise. And severe weather, severe storms in Joplin, Missouri is another day in paradise, okay? And so despite these warnings, the citizens continue on about their day, and they treat the day as normal, right? Like I said, it's May, so the school year is coming to an end. And for a lot of schools within that city, the school year has already ended. And so they're attending like graduation ceremonies and even like throwing these big, a lot of people are throwing these big graduation parties for the graduating class. And so there's a lot of activity going on. It happened on a Sunday. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of movement, not only with just the weekend crowd, but with people now going back and forth from graduation ceremonies and graduation parties. And so it's a bustling city. The city is alive that day, and no one is hunkering down in their basement waiting out some fucking another rainstorm, right? Well, things kind of changed. There's a bit of a shift in the mood that day, because at 5:17, the citizens of Joplin are stopped in their track when they hear the sound of sirens begin to fill the air. Now, what kind of sirens are these, you may ask? Police sirens? No. Car alarms, right? Like those kind of sirens? No. Tornado sirens.
We come out of graduation and there's a tornado.
Down? Are you down?
It's kind of peculiar. Well, as mentioned prior, the citizens of Joplin are not strangers to severe weather. And that, even on kind of rare occasions, especially for their region, includes tornadoes. They don't really get tornadoes that often. And when they do, they're not too severe, and they usually don't hit the city of Joplin. They usually like go around it, or it happened in some field way out, on the outskirts of the city, but never really do they hit the city. So, naively so, the citizens of Joplin just continue on with their day despite all of these warnings and literal tornado sirens filling the air. And now, if we jump back to the news station, I believe the station name is
KSNF TV, Channel 16, Joplin.
They begin reporting the news. They begin reporting the weather, right? The severe weather that's on the horizon. And they begin to give warning to the citizens of Joplin that, hey, this may be a bit more severe than we had once thought.
If you live in Joplin, I'm going to tell you right now, I want you to take cover. It looks like there's a bit of an inflow right near western Joplin. That could become a little bit of a hook, and that, of course, means some rotation there. So
they themselves begin to issue their own tornado warning.
Even if you are in a smaller room, so take a mattress, a blanket, make sure you cover yourself. Do not stay in your vehicle. Don't try to outrun a tornado. Head to shelter if you possibly can. If you cannot, then seek shelter in a ditch. That would be the best thing to do. Otherwise, if your mobile home area does have some sort of storm shelter, head there. Watch out for any flying debris, of course, and don't try to outrun those tornadoes.
But you can still hear in the tone of their voice that they don't really know how serious to take this. Is it a false alarm, or is it a tornado? And if it is a tornado, is it even going to hit the city, or is it going to just avoid us like it usually does? And so all that's happening in the station, right? It's kind of a confusion, okay? A confusion as far as what's to come, right? And if we can now leave the station for a second and head on down to the southwestern corner of Joplin City, just on the outskirts, right? Where at 5:34 p.m., an EF0 tornado makes landfall.
If you can tell on this camera, and I don't know if you can hear, but these clouds are rapidly spinning. That right there is a tornado. Holy crap.
It descends and is now ripping up trees and causing pretty minor destruction in its path. Now, where is the path headed, you may ask? It's headed right for Joplin, Missouri. That same small town where the citizens were not heeding any warning signs of severe weather to come and continuing on as normal, right? And this tornado begins to make its way towards Joplin, gaining major strength as it does so. And it's getting larger and larger and larger. And it moves in a northeastern direction. And it eventually gets up to an EF1. Now, if we can all do a quick lesson real quick. I want to kind of break down to you the ranking system of tornadoes and exactly how it works. Okay. Now, tornadoes are based on a strength system, and their strength is measured by the speed that they are, the wind speed that they produce. Okay. It goes all the way from an EF0 being the weakest tornado, all the way up to an EF5, which is the strongest tornado. Now, an EF0 produces winds at 65 to 85 miles per hour. An EF1 tornado produces winds at 86 to 110 miles per hour. An EF2 tornado produces winds of 111 to 135 miles per hour. An EF3 tornado produces wind speeds of 136 to 165 miles per hour. An EF4 tornado produces wind speeds of 166 to 200 miles per hour. And an EF5 tornado, again, the strongest that a tornado can be rated, produces wind speeds of 200 plus miles per hour. Okay. And so as the tornado begins to gain momentum and gain speed and gain size and gain power, it moves further and further into the city of Joplin. And the folks that are in the path of the tornado still have no clue of what the fuck is coming. Okay. Now, the tornado makes its way to the southwestern corner of the city near Twin Hills Country Club, where several homes are destroyed, and the tornado is now rated at an EF3 tornado, producing wind speeds of 136 to 165 miles per hour. Now, shortly after, the tornado moves to the Iron Gates community, where it begins throwing cars into homes, and it gets to an EF4 rating, which is 166 to 200 miles per hour. Now, at 5:38, the tornado moves onto South Schifferdaker Avenue. I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. That's a weird-ass street name. It moves onto that avenue, and it begins like doing some major damage. The tornado has only been active for 4 minutes, and already it has made its way up to an EF4 tornado. Okay. It went from an EF0 to an EF4 in a matter of 4 fucking minutes, which is insane. And if we now jump back to that news station, KSNF channel 16 in Joplin, shout out, they're back in the studio. They're still doing their weather broadcast. There's still this air of calmness and even lightheartedness, if you will, in the station as they're broadcasting. And they decide to switch their view back to the Skycam, right? That camera that is mounted at the top of that tower on the broadcasting station. And they're talking about the footage that they're seeing live in real time. And from the angle that the camera is pointing, you're only looking at the northeastern part of the city, okay? And so from that perspective, it just looks like a typical fucking rainstorm, right? But something in that footage is really weird. It's really peculiar. They begin to see big flashes of light coming from the left-hand corner of the screen. And so out of curiosity, the producer controlling the camera that's mounted on the tower decides that he's going to turn the camera to get a better look at what the fuck just exploded. Was it lightning? Was it a transformer? What the hell was that? And so as they pan that camera to the left, that air of calm, that lighthearted vibe going on in the studio quickly shifts. And not only does it shift in the studio, I like to joke and think that even the camera went, oh shit, right when it caught wind of what the hell was going on, because the camera pauses, it freezes, and it freezes right in the view of what is now an EF5 tornado that has descended upon the city, and it's making its way into town, into the city center where the most heavily populated area is, and also making its way right towards the station that is fucking broadcasting it.
There's our tower cam.
That would appear to be a power flash. That could be from a lightning strike, but that is the portion of the storm that we have been concerned with.
Tornado sirens once
Tornado
again.
sirens once again going off in Joplin. Those are definitely power flashes that we are seeing on the ground.
Live in southern Jasper, northern Newton. Take cover.
Yes, please.
Right now.
Please,
I am telling you to take cover.
Take cover right now.
We do have a
Folks,
tornado on the ground.
This is a tornado. Yeah, this is a very dangerous situation. We cannot stress this enough. If you are in Joplin, please take cover.
I gotta tip my hat to these guys. I don't know how the hell they do what they do and are able to maintain such professionalism. Because think about it. They're sitting at their desk looking at a monitor that is displaying on screen a massive EF5 tornado that is ripping through their city, headed straight for what looks like the studio they're broadcasting in. And they decide to maintain this level of professionalism and continue to broadcast the news and what could be their final moments. But now they realize they're in a position where they have to essentially save lives by notifying the public of what the fuck they're seeing and what to do. Insane stuff. And once again, I tip my hat to those guys and gals, because if that was me, the broadcast might have looked something like this. And as we now go to the sky cam over another rainy day here in Joplin, we see that there's some activity happening on the left side of the screen here. So we're going to go ahead and pan the camera over, and we see that. Holy shit. Now, as mentioned before, the tornado is now an EF5, and it is doing some major damage to the city of Joplin. It's headed towards downtown Joplin, but right now, as we're speaking, actively at this time, 5:38, it is like in suburbia, okay? And it is tearing up every house that is in its path, literally blowing houses off of their foundation and flattening them, reducing them to rubble in a matter of seconds.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
Phone in the car?
For the cars. Hello? Hello?
And not only houses are being destroyed, but even commercial buildings are being destroyed. And not only are buildings and houses being destroyed, but lives are also being destroyed. A young man by the name of Will Norton, who was leaving his own high school graduation, riding in the passenger seat, being driven by his father, when the tornado catches them at an intersection and they are essentially engulfed by the tornado. Now, I said there was two gentlemen riding in that car, Will Norton and his father. There was only one casualty that was reported because his father managed to survive the whole debacle. But as for Will Norton himself, this young man was sucked out of the passenger seat, out of the window, and thrusted into the tornado right in front of his father. And if we can go on a side note, Will Norton's sister, her name escapes me at the moment, but she is actually a pretty popular like lifestyle influencer here on YouTube. And when I was doing my research, she had posted a video telling the whole story of what happened that day and how her brother lost his life. And she posted that story months, if not weeks, after it happened. And not only did she have a channel, but Will Norton himself had a channel where he would kind of do daily vlogs and little skits and just kind of like day in the life videos. And one of the last videos that he posted was a video titled, "I Almost Died." And it's a story that he's telling. And the story includes him almost losing his life in a vehicle that was caught in a severe storm.
Every street is just like one entire puddle. And I'm going and there's trees down in the road. So I'm freaking out for school, but no one was in the gym. So we go to this tiny hallway with no windows, and that's where everyone is because everyone's afraid there's going to be a tornado. And I was like, there's not a tornado.
It's very eerie. It's very eerie, if you ask me. Now, the tornado continued heading east along 7th Street, flattening homes and buildings and businesses along the way. Just to give you an idea of the destruction of this damn thing, I mean, concrete walls were collapsing into the foundation. Steel trusses from buildings were rolled up like newspaper. A large hospital building, the main hospital building in Joplin, was destroyed and nearly uprooted from its foundation. And it was demolished weeks after the incident because it was deemed no longer structurally sound. In the destruction of this hospital during the tornado, 5 people would lose their lives. Cars that were parked in the parking lot were picked up and thrown, including a semi-truck that was thrown 125 yards away. And debris from the hospital, including x-rays and medical reports and dental records, were found miles away in different counties, not even in the same city. That's how powerful this fucking tornado was. It was blowing debris into neighboring cities. Now, every house in this area was pretty much flattened, was pretty much destroyed, okay? And the tornado remained at an EF5 as it continued to make its way eastward further into the city. Now, as it crossed onto Main Street between 20th and 26th Street, it moved eastward, just barely missing downtown Joplin. So thank God, luckily, a busy city center was not directly hit, okay? Now, nearly every business in this area was destroyed and every neighborhood was completely flattened. All the trees had been completely debarked. Homes were blown off of their foundation. Concrete porches were blown away. Cars were blown away like toys, some never to be found again. A church was also destroyed. A nursing home was leveled, killing 21 of its residents. St. Mary Catholic Church was destroyed. Franklin Technology Center was destroyed. And Joplin High School was blown away. Now, if we can look for a silver lining in all this, look for a piece of mercy in this whole situation, the day of May 22nd, 2011 was a Sunday. And so school was not in session. And this is significant because if you look at the recovered surveillance footage from inside of the high school as it was being ripped apart, you can kind of imagine the destruction and the disaster that this thing really could have been if that was a packed schoolhouse. I mean, this thing would have been even more historic than it already was, okay? Pieces of cardboard were found embedded into walls, and steel beams were embedded deeply into the ground. Now, as the tornado crossed Connecticut Avenue further to the east, it destroyed several large apartment buildings, killing 14, along with a Dillon's grocery store and a bank. Now, something interesting about the bank that was destroyed, only the concrete and steel deposit box was left of the bank. And if you look at photos of the bank in the aftermath, it's kind of creepy, man, because you have this like flat leveled foundation with just this deposit box sticking up out of the ground in what used to be an entire bank. Now, the tornado then approached Range Line Road, the main road between 13th and 32nd Street, continuing to cause major damage as it reached its largest point, nearly 1 mile wide. You heard me right, folks. This tornado was nearly 1 mile wide. And not only was it 1 mile, I have a really hard time even fathoming, like trying to picture in my head a tornado that is fucking 1 mile wide in size. That is nuts. Now, not only was this tornado 1 mile wide, but it was also reaching its strongest points. Now, many experts believe that the tornado at this point was reaching wind speeds of up to 255 miles per hour, which is unfathomable. If you kind of want to do a comparison, then look at like Hurricane Ian, which struck Florida a few years back. Now look at the devastation and destruction that the wind from that hurricane caused, okay?
Wearing baseball helmets for protection against projectiles.
I just got knocked on my butt. You can hardly see anything out here.
Jim Cantori had some close calls. First, he almost got struck by lightning. Then he got hit with a tree branch.
That wind speed was 155 miles per hour, okay? And it did all that destruction to Florida, a city that is kind of meant to weather strong gusts of winds and meant to weather hurricanes. Now, you take those conditions, intensify them, and you put them in a city that's not meant to deal with something this powerful. And you get this kind of shit here. Now, the tornado would eventually strike a Pizza Hut. Now, this Pizza Hut was situated on South Range Line Road. This Pizza Hut was still in business when the tornado had hit the city and hit that area of the city. So the customers as well as the staff that were inside of the building were not able to get away. And so they decided that they would hunker down inside of this Pizza Hut and try to ride out this tornado. And as the tornado got closer to this Pizza Hut, they realized that, holy shit, this building is not strong enough to withstand speeds this intense. And the building begins to be getting like stripped away all around them as they're in it. And so that's when the store manager, Christopher Lucas, decides to herd all of the employees, which were 4 at the time on duty, and 15 of the customers that were inside of the Pizza Hut into a freezer in the back of the store's kitchen. And they all get into this freezer at the leadership of Christopher Lucas, and they realize that the suction that this tornado is causing is way too heavy, is causing a suction, and the door is way too heavy to be shut. And Christopher decides that he's not able to shut the door. So what he does is he grabs a bungee cord, wraps it around his wrist, and wraps the other end of that cord around the handle of said freezer door. And he decides to brace and hold the door shut using the bungee cord attached to his rope. And by God, it's working. It's working pretty damn well. And the people stuck in that freezer realize that they might be okay because of the bravery displayed by a Mr. Christopher Lucas. Well, as this wicked beast of a tornado makes it closer to the Pizza Hut, it fully engulfs the entire store. And Christopher Lucas is not able to maintain his position. And the winds are so strong that it rips the door open, and Christopher Lucas is sucked from that freezer out into the tornado. And his lifeless body was discovered shortly after, hundreds of yards away from the Pizza Hut. All of the other staffers and customers that were in the freezer had survived. As the tornado continues to make its way east, it levels a Walmart, a Home Depot, and other businesses in the area are destroyed. And cars are now being thrown from the Home Depot parking lot into other parts of the city, hundreds of yards away. And a large tractor trailer was thrown 200 yards away. An Academy Sports and Outdoors was destroyed, as well as a 3-story apartment building and 2 cell phone towers. 100-pound manhole covers were ripped off of the ground and thrown like frisbees through the air. A Pepsi distribution plant was completely flattened, and 20 people will die in this area alone. Now, the devastation will continue as the tornado makes its way onto Dukens Road and southeast Joplin. The industrial park was specifically hit very hard in this area between 20th Street and Dukens Road. Nearly every building was flattened in this area, and heavy industrial vehicles were thrown 400 yards away. The worst hit in this area was a Cummins warehouse, which was completely leveled. This is where the tornado begins to dissipate, because this is where the tornado drops from an EF5 to an EF4, but it is still very, very strong. I mean, an EF4 is no laughing matter, and it is actually able to destroy a fast trip gas station in this area
that we were at. This would have been where we walked in. We would have gone right here. We parked right over there. Our car got blown away, but the front door was just right there.
And many other structures and homes in that area were also destroyed, including East Middle School, another school that sustained major damage, but in this case was not completely destroyed. Now, the tornado continued southeast towards I-44, and despite weakening at this point to an EF3 to EF2 tornado, it still threw cars off of the fucking highway. Now, it continues tracking towards southeast Jasper County and northeast Newton County, where it caused minor to moderate damage. Now, at 6:20 p.m., the storm would eventually make its way east of Diamond County, where it would weaken and eventually dissipate and lift. The nightmare is officially over. Now, the distance traveled of this tornado was 21.6 miles in total. It was 1 mile wide at its strongest point and managed to take the life of 158 people and injuring 1,150 people. Now, the estimated winds were 220 to 250 miles per hour. Now, it was estimated that 75% of Jasper was damaged. 25% of the buildings were destroyed. 20,000 people were left without power for 10 to 12 days. Water lines were almost completely damaged, and residents had to boil water before drinking it. And those same residents would have to rely on temporary cell phone towers because all of the major mobile towers in the area had completely been blown over. Now, a total of $3 billion was paid out by various insurance companies, making it the costliest tornado since 1950. And listen to this shit. A police officer who was assisting in the cleanup and rescue efforts the day after the tornado was struck by lightning and killed. And so, though he was not killed as a direct result of the tornado, he is now thrown into the various people who were killed and the after effects of the tornado. Now, this part is really fucked up. This is insane, okay? Now, apparently, there was a flesh-eating bacteria in the soil of Joplin that went by the name of mucormycosis. Now, as the soil and debris was being mixed around in this tornado like a big soup, the debris, which was now contaminated with this flesh-eating virus, was shot out of the tornado. And if you were unlucky enough, you were impaled with debris that was contaminated with a flesh-eating virus. And after the fact, 18 people were infected by said flesh-eating virus, and 5 people would lose their life from the disease. Now, 54% of people had died in their homes, 32% of people had died in non-residential areas, and 14% of people had died in their vehicles. 944 pets were rescued, and of the 944 pets, 292 were able to be returned back to their owners. And to this day, the residents who were unlucky enough to be impaled with debris, but lucky enough to not be impaled with mucormycosis contaminated debris, are still to this day pulling out small pieces of debris from their body.
Decade later, Matt's body still gives him other tiny reminders of that awful day.
It was about 2 months ago I pulled a piece of wood out of my head again. X-Acto blades and disinfectants, all of that. Pulling, inch pieces of wood out of myself, or glass, gravel, and it still continues to this day.
Insane. Now, the cleanup was costly and took months. Now, when it was all said and done, they were able to remove 3 million cubic yards of debris. Now, this debris is enough to cover the length and width of a football field while reaching 120 stories high. Just a massive pile of debris was removed in total from this small ass town. And eventually, at the time, President Barack Obama would make his way to Joplin on May 29th to speak with some of the residents. And during his speech, he would warn the city officials that it's speculated that 25% of the residents would leave Joplin following the after effects of the tornado, which would severely cripple Joplin's economy. And so the citizens of Joplin, being super fucking resilient, decide that they would immediately begin their rebuilding efforts. And they began to build from the year 2011 all the way to 2022, 5 homes a week. Insane. Now, 300 new businesses were opened between the year of 2011 and 2016. So as you can see, there's this major effort to hurry up and rebuild their city and get it back to the peaceful communal city that it once was. Now, the Home Depot that was destroyed in the most powerful moment of the tornado was completely flattened beyond recognition, okay? But the company of Home Depot decided to assist the people of Joplin in rebuilding their community by assembling a 3,000 square foot tent in the parking lot of the destroyed Home Depot. And this would allow the residents to be able to buy supplies and tools and the hardware needed to begin to build and do their own DIY so they can also contribute to the rebuilding of Joplin, Missouri. And over the course of 3 years, the city of Joplin was rebuilt, and it is now once again a bustling, still small town that is stronger and more resilient than ever. Now, we all love a good happy ending. I know I do. And we must, pay our respects and pay homage to those who were not able to see that happy ending, whose lives were lost during this epic event. As mentioned prior, this tornado completely caught the residents of Joplin, Missouri off guard. And you ask yourself, like, looking at pictures of this town before the incident, it's not no like major bustling metropolis with giant skyscrapers that are blocking the skyline. You know, it's a relatively flat Midwestern town, and you're able to see the skyline in almost all directions. So it's like, how the fuck did they not see a massive EF5 hurtling towards their city? Like I said, they had been receiving warnings of pretty severe weather activity moving into the area that day. And you have people who were not as official as like meteorologists who go out and track storms and track weather and even like hunt and chase tornadoes, right? And that's exactly what the Base Hunters team was doing. Now, the Base Hunters is a small team of tornado chasers that were that day working for the tornadovideos.net, a website back in the day that was completely dedicated to the hunting and capturing footage of various tornadoes across America. And the Base Hunters team, which consisted of Colt Forney, Isaac Pato, Kevin Rolfs, and Scott Peak, they did not ignore those warnings. In fact, when they heard those warnings, they decided to suit up and boot up and do what the fuck they do best. Go out and hunt some damn storms. And they began tracking the storm all the way to where it was kind of centered and where this thing would eventually begin. And they capture the only footage of the conception, the creation of this tornado as it goes from a funnel cloud up in the sky all the way to a full-blown tornado on the ground. And if you watch that footage, I'll link it in the description below. One thing you'll notice is how quick this fucking tornado formed. It went from nothing, just clouds in the sky, all the way to an EF5 in a matter of like 2 fucking minutes. You know, I was watching it on YouTube and my mind was blown. And they're witnessing this in real life, and I imagine it's not their first fucking rodeo. They chase tornadoes for a living, and their mind is blown.
I got it. Stop. We need the windows up on the right. Yes. Move your head, Isaac. I got it on video. Your man. Stop. Okay. We need road options if we want to stay with it. Oh, I got lightning strike. Alright, we have to go back. Okay, hold on. I got a car around. Oh, it's getting big.
They cannot believe what they're seeing. And it's revealed pretty quickly that even if you're the best and most well-trained person in the field of tornado hunting, there's almost no way to track and even make up a fucking scenario like this. It was absolutely insane. And no pun intended, it was the perfect storm of events that led to what happened on May 22nd, 2011. Absolutely insane and unfortunate turn of events. But as unfortunate as this event was, I think it does say a lot about humanity, you know? Because while the strongest forces of nature can throw the best that it has at us, and while it can wipe away our homes and our places of work and our town, it can't wipe away the tenacity and resilience that is humanity. Covering the insane events of this story, that's going to be the biggest thing that I take away. Seeing the people of Joplin come together after losing loved ones and limbs and their homes and everything that they once knew, still being able to put all that aside for the sake of their community and people that they may not have even known. It's a beautiful thing. And so I want to give a big fat salute to the people of Joplin. And I want to give a big fat salute to the people that tuned in to another episode of The Midnight Show. I thank you all for joining me. This story was a bit of a doozy to cover. This was one of the few stories of mine that wasn't completely centered around death and not even centered around one person in particular. So there was a lot of information and a lot to cover about this story. But it was a very fascinating story nonetheless. And I had a rather interesting time learning about it. So once again, I thank you all for tuning in, and I would ask that you all leave a like, comment, and subscribe as you do so well, and I'll continue to churn out these videos to the best of my ability, and we'll keep growing this thing, you know. But in the meantime, if you made it this far, I thank you all for watching, and I look very forward to seeing you next week. But until then, I bid you all a farewell, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
An unusual sight in Joplin, Missouri, where elephants helped clean up some tornado damage. The Piccadilly Circus came to town on Sunday, but they had no place to perform, so they pitched in to help residents dig out in Joplin.